Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast this week is Simon Nelson, who is original member and guitarist of a prominent East Lancashire band, the Milltown Brothers. The Milltown Brothers formed in the late 80s. They had a successful period with the album Slinky and recently performed at a sold-out gig over in Hebden Bridge. Simon, it's absolutely brilliant to get you on the Godcast. How's things?
Oh, really well, and it's a pleasure to be here, Alex. Thank you very much for inviting us to come on. Thank you.
So, originally from Colne, are you still in East Lancashire, Simon? Have you moved away, or?
I actually, I live away, and I live down near Peterborough in Cambridgeshire, actually, where my wife's family were from. So when we had kids, we moved out of London and we settled here. My heart is in East Lancashire always, but I haven't really lived there since sort of like I left to go to university and what have you. So, but I'm always going back to watch, to obviously meet up with the lads and watch Burnley when I can. I'm obviously a big Clarets fan, so very much a strong affection for the area still. Absolutely.
You miss it when you're away. You kind of have to for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, around here, it's it's lovely. Middle English countryside. It's actually very, very flat, quite near to the fens, and it's drier and very agricultural. And when I go up north, I always miss the sort of rolling hills, Pendle with its sense of mysticism and all the industrial towns. It's in the blood, definitely.
Yeah, and recently you were back on the stage over at Hebden Bridge. Was that a joyful experience, or were you quite nervous about it, or?
Well, yeah, a little bit nervous. Yeah, we found out quite early that it sold out quite a lot, which made us sharpen up our rehearsals. Very much at Groove Studios in Burnley, so we came up to rehearse in Burnley with Chris up there, and I must admit, we're a little bit nervous. It's been the first time we played live under our own steam for really quite a long time. We've done a couple of festivals in sort of when we released Long Road in about 2015, but playing under under our own name, that had been quite a long time. But joyful is the right word, Alex. It was a wonderful night, and we got a fabulous reception that we're really grateful for. And it's a great venue over there, and recommend it to anybody. It was a really lovely experience, and it's given us the taste to do some more coming up before Christmas and hopefully after Christmas.
Yeah, what prompted you to do it?
Yeah, good question, because we haven't been doing very much. I actually had quite a big birthday earlier in the year, and I think we're friends really, and it's always a pleasure to sort of play together. So we use that as a kind of excuse to go out for a meal, have a few beers, and also to rehearse. And we found that it was enjoyable, and we were thinking of what would be a good venue. Not too ambitious because it's been a long time. Obviously, we wouldn't expect to play somewhere like the Mechanics or perhaps Colne Municipal. And very, very kindly, Malcolm put us on over at the Hebden Bridge, and it sold out, and it was fabulous. And it's really helped our social media platforms, and the support we're getting through there is great. So it was fun. So why not? Let's do some more. Yeah. It's good.
And I guess there were some familiar faces in the audience, people who
we hadn't seen for a long time. People have come from quite a long way away, and obviously quite a few come over from East Lancashire and other parts of Lancashire and Yorkshire as well. But people coming out from Scotland, Nottingham, from the south. It was wonderful. Yeah, we got some very loyal and much appreciated fans over the years, and it was lovely to see them and perform for them again. It was great.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with the Milltown Brothers, your brother is lead singer, isn't he, and part of the band. I was interested to ask Simon where it all kind of began, where the kind of love for music and your kind of just take us back to the time when you first picked up a guitar and what it was behind it.
I think, there always been some music in the house. My dad played piano, and he, Sunday mornings to relax, you'd hear the sound of the piano coming up the stairs and what have you. So there was always a kind of fascination for it. And, in my early sort of formative years, even before sort of in my, pre-teens, you'd listen to Top of the Pops, and there'll be all the, pop music of the day. Slade, etc., things like that at the time. But my brother Mark, my eldest brother Mark, picked up the guitar first, and he was the one that really inspired me to pick up the guitar as well. And that time, sort of being 14, 15, 16, it was a time of new wave punk and things like that. So I was really into bands like the Jam, the Undertones, and Flaming Groovies, and American bands like Television and things like that. So I was always, even with a few little basic bar chords, was trying to write songs and sort of achieve that kind of new wavy punky sound. So that was really my introduction in my teenage years to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it come quite naturally? Or was it a bit of a struggle at first? Or
it was a bit of a struggle. Mastering the old bar chords was quite. I remember that being quite difficult. So I used my brother's old. He had a Telecaster copy, and I have a little practice amp, and you put records on to try and listen to them back in those days. And I wouldn't say I was a complete natural, no, but I was always ambitious to write songs and perform. I was being a bit of a show off. So at school I had bands, and we'd perform, and then went on to university and I had a band there, and which a part of that morphed into the Milltown Brothers, actually. So the band I was in at university, the Word Association, we would tour. For a time I studied French, and so I was based in France, in Paris, and in the summers we'd go down to the near Béziers, Cap d'Agde, and Montpellier, and play on the in the bars and stuff there. And we did that for 4 summers. And on the last one in '87, Matthew came down and joined us, and he was in a band in Lancaster at the time called Aspire, and the two of us kind of morphed together in the autumn of '87. So that was the sort of beginning of the Milltown Brothers back then.
Yeah, and what was the kind of I suppose there's an element of luck, but obviously there's the aspect that you're decent. What was the kind of, how did it evolve that you got a record deal?
Yeah, we did have a bit of luck, and initially things moved very quickly. I'd not had a great deal of luck in the Word Association. We'd lived in London, and it'd been a real battle, and we'd done a little bit. But with the Milltown Brothers, we I think forming in Manchester helped. And we played in Manchester at the Boardwalk and at the university. But I was based in London at the time. I was working down there. So I took a cassette out, a demo tape, and got us some gigs at the Time Box in Kentish Town and places like that. And Dingwalls, things like that. So the lads would come down in a hired van, and we'd play in the summer of '88 in London. And very, fortuitously, Steve Lamack was at one of those gigs. We were first on. And he saw us play, and there was nobody, one man and his dog in the room. Really, literally, we were first on, and he really liked it. Gave us a great review, and after that, we started to get interest. And before too long, NME were comparing us to the Sundays. We're going to be the next big thing. And by the end of '88, we had an EMI publishing deal, and it was going really quickly, and a great contrast to what I'd felt before. But after that time, in sort of '89, we did have to really buckle down a bit then. The music was changing a bit. We'd started out being a bit more like, I guess, the Waterboys, Martin Stevenson and the Dainties, kind of feel, Hothouse Flowers even kind of thing. And it changed a bit as the music changed in '89, and we had to shape up and really work very hard and tour a lot, and release a couple of indie singles before we were finally signed to A&M in early 1990.
Just tell us about that time, Simon, because I guess you're not getting paid mega bucks for touring around. You're almost, like you say, you're having to play where you can, aren't you, to get your mindset there. How do you manage financially in a situation?
We were given a fairly decent advance from EMI. I mean, not a lot. I think it was about 25 grand, of which we bought some new equipment. We bought a long wheelbase Transit, bright orange, and that helped us because that enabled us to go and play wherever we wanted. And, I remember we would tour, for example, we had an agent and he sent us off on tour to places like rural Wales, and we play Lampeter, Aberystwyth, and, all around. And it was a really good, tough sort of training ground for us, and we'd sleep on people's floors and do it the old-fashioned hard way, but it was great. It was wonderful. I wouldn't have changed it for anything. It was great fun.
And then what happened?
Well, then I think really things changed for us, I think, with the release of Which Way Should I Jump through Big Round Records, which is an indie label based at Strawberry Studios in Manchester. I think we got Single of the Week in NME, and the tour in the autumn, we were being looked at by record companies quite seriously. And I think we demoed for A&M at the end of 1990. We were touring all the time, playing a lot, and being watched a lot by a lot of companies that come down and check us out. And we demoed for them, and they were very happy with the demo in Christmas 89, 90, and we signed for them in 1990. So having things gone quite quickly in sort of 88, it was more of a struggle in 89 and much more like hard work to get the record deal. That was a much harder thing.
And when you got that deal, can you remember your emotions and how that felt?
Yeah, I mean, delighted. I mean, it was the fruits of hard work, but I do remember when we signed for them, the head of the record company, we meant to imagine you get lots of champagne, it'd be a big party. But he'd forgotten to buy champagne, so he had to send his secretary out to around a local shop, and it was warm. But at least we got champagne. So that was great.
What was the biggest difference, Simon, about being signed to a label than kind of ploughing your old furrow, as it were? Were you kind of being
yeah,
go on.
I think that, things are taken out of your hands a little bit in terms of, you get the promotion, you get a radio plugger, you've got a big machine behind you to pay for the recording contracts. You're made to feel good. You're going there, and you're a recording artist, and it does give you a big lift, and it gives you the pressure as well. You know that they're spending a lot of money on it, and you don't think about it, but at some point down the track that they're going to want that money back. But I think it gave us a great deal of confidence, and once we'd signed, we actually had a period of writing, 3 or 4 songs, 4 or 5 actually, and demoing them after being signed, that eventually ended up on Slinky. So it gave us a lot of confidence and motivation and inspiration. I think it was a really positive thing for us. And the recording of Slinky down in Bath Moles was just a lovely experience in the summer of 1990.
Were there any red lights early on, that it might all go a bit sour?
I'm trying to think. Well, a little bit, you first released the first single, Apple Green, only sort of went into about 89, and you did get a bit of a worry. Oh my goodness, what if the album comes out and totally flops? What on earth are we going to do? They're going to want the money back. We'll be out in the street, things like that. But then, Which Way Should I Jump came out, and it got a lot of radio play. We got on the TV. We were toured ourselves, and then we toured a fabulous tour with the Lars from Liverpool. They were great, and we loved that. So the warning signs were probably more coming towards the end of that year. I remember playing in Portsmouth Poly, and some guy said, I remember saying, I think he was one of the guys doing the sound, and he said, "Are you enjoying yourselves at the moment?" I said, "Oh yeah, we're having a great time." Said always treat people well on the way up, because you never know what it's going to be like on the way down, and that stuck with me. And before you know it, in a couple of years, we were on our way down. So
I mean, it's fascinating to hear. I mean, I was just looking you up on YouTube, and you were on Wogan, weren't you? And
yeah.
I know. People might laugh when you say you were on Blue Peter, but these were mainstream TV channels that gave you great exposure. And
they did, yeah. We were on Going Live, trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I remember one particular day we were playing it. There's a big, I can't remember the venue in Charing Cross. We played there, and we did Wogan in the after. We sound checked to the gig, did Wogan, did the gig, flew to America to play a tour the next day. So we were in a really good sweet spot at that time, and so and it just didn't quite sort of, although we charted with Slinky, did chart and top 30, Which Way Should I Jump charted. We couldn't just push it on from there, which was a shame.
Did you? So Slinky was top 30 album, was it, or top?
It was 27. It peaked
27.
Yeah.
So was that considered a success then? By firstly by you, the band, and was it considered kind of a good start by the record label or not?
Yeah, I think we were really pleased. I remember we was charting and we were celebrating it. We were playing with the Lars at the Town and Country Club in London, and we thought we'd done really well with that. It got 5-star review in Q magazine, and that's quite rare. So the critics were seemingly were liking it a lot. I mean, sales to get to 27 is good, but it's not stellar. Some of our peers like Rides and Mock Turtles, they were going higher. The Lars were going a lot higher than that. But for us, we were very pleased with that. And I think the record company were thinking, yeah, this is a really good start. We could push on with the next record and take these guys into the top 10. I mean, that was really the feeling. We'd had a bit of a knockback with the second single, Here I Stand, which had sort of midweek to sort of 31, and we were all set up for Top of the Pops, and we went out with the promotional team in East Lancs and sold a lot basically, and they weighted us back to 41, and that was a moment that was difficult and perhaps changed the pathway for us. But I think being 27 in the charts we were pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, and was the deal like for multi-albums, Simon? Was it 4/5s? What was the deal?
Yeah, it was on an ongoing renewal basis. So we were signed. They were happy enough to sign us for the second record. So I think it was a multiple album deal, but reviewed on each release. So the second record, Valve, we did in '92, which was in '93, which ended up being a real difficult second record, classic experience.
And was that because the label had taken too much control? You lost your kind of artistic freedom. What was it?
I think it was a combination of things. I think we lost a bit of confidence because they knocked us back with some of the early recordings we did. For example, in Oxfordshire, we did a set of 3 tracks, and they didn't like them, particularly the record label. And musical tastes had changed. The previous autumn we toured the States, and we had our first sort of exposure to grunge. We played to a festival in Boston in '91 in September, October, and Nirvana were playing, and we went to watch them. We played, then we went to watch them, and I couldn't quite get it at first. I thought it sounded like heavy metal and like Black Sabbath. I thought, I don't get this. And then you heard the record and you thought, wow, yeah, I get it. It's really brilliant songwriting. And it changed. And I think we tried to catch up, and our sort of jangle pop sort of singles like Here I Stand, which we had a Jump Apple Green. You had to move on, and we tried to sort of add a heavier edge to it, and ended up with a bit of a compromise in Valve, which in hindsight was a combination of us being the songwriting not being as good, and not being as focused, losing confidence, and the record company losing confidence, and that it ended up with a bit of a mishmash of an album that didn't do so well, really.
And was the end not too long after that then?
Well, yeah, about '93, they didn't sign us for another record, so we did a tour, and trying to think back then, I think we were all friends. It didn't really affect the friendship of the lads. I remember we played Derby, and I think Barney had had enough by then, and we'd gone from playing full, to 1,000 people, even 1,500 sometimes, and then we were playing at the Derby Warehouse in front of 125, 150. And even though I totally appreciate those 150 people coming to watch us, don't get me wrong. Sure. But I think it became obvious that you're chasing your tail a bit, and it's a spiral downwards. And I think Barney was the first to realise that, and he had other ambitions with his songwriting, and he went on to play with other bands then. And we tried to keep going as a 4-piece, and then ultimately even as a 3-piece with me, Matthew, and James. But by '95, we kind of called it a day for a while. So yeah, it was. We were left a bit in the lurch then. Actually, that was a bit of a tough period.
I chatted to Rick Witter from Shed 7 about the kind of the winding up of a band. What was that like for you, Simon, particularly afterwards? Not so much the split, but the month or two's go by, and were you less thinking, well, what do I do now?
I was, yeah, and I remember it quite well. I was living in with my wife in a flat in London in Hornsey, Holloway Road, and I've been used, in a period of playing gigs all the time, being busy and recording, and then to nothing, and the realization there was no money coming in. You're feeling very sorry for yourself, sitting drinking Holston Pils a lot. I drank a lot, and I went in a bit of a spiral, and I think we all did. We were all in a very dark mood, dark place. Tried to revive it, and everyone came down to London, and it was the winter of 94, 95. Pretty unpleasant, and realised I had to get a job. So yeah, it happens, and you think in football and things like that, in sport, there's quite a lot of support for sportsmen who don't make it, or they have a career and it goes wrong. There isn't that for musicians. Not saying that there should be, but it's you're leaning on the crutch of drinking too much and other things to keep you going. So we went through that a bit.
Did you fall out of love with music at that point, or did you kind of?
I think we must have done, Alex. Yeah, I think we did. I think the songwriting went right off then. We were trying all sorts of things, being desperate and loss of focus. We got it back a bit towards the end of the 90s. We had a band called Milo. Steve Taylor was on bass at that time, and Matthew Nean and me. We got close then. We recorded demos for Ireland, and I think James was in a band at the time in this. The Show Ponies, and Barney was very busy, so everybody kept around music, and we got back together in 2002 to do our third record, Rubber Band, which was self-financed. Recorded part of that in Colne at the Derby Arms, actually. So that was quite interesting.
And when you're doing it for love rather than like the dosh, not that you were doing it for the dosh, but obviously dosh is important, but
you got to live, haven't you? Yeah.
You got to live. Was that album as significant as Slinky in that regard? That it actually kind of brought you back together. And
I think for the first 2 weeks of recording, and maybe 4 weeks, it felt great. We were all back together, we were recording. We were a producer. It was like being in a gang again. We'd go out at night and live the experience of being a musician for 2 to 3 weeks. And then as everybody got back to their jobs, I'd taken 2 or 3 weeks off holiday. It became much harder to give the time and make a record properly. And again, it became a bit of a compromise, a bit of a piecemeal record that at the end of the day, we probably weren't as satisfied as we'd hoped for. So initially, yes, but ultimately, things had changed.
Yeah. And were you working in the music industry, or did you go off and do something completely different?
Yeah, I did something completely different. I was working for a market research company in London, which in Islington, and everyone else. Matthew had moved into working at Granada Studios. I think Nian was working in the fashion business, and Barney had kept on in music, and James was doing I think he'd gone back to academia then. I think he was doing a master's. So yeah, we were all sort of doing different things. Ultimately that probably came through in the record that we made at that time.
And how often does kind of what might have been enter the ether? Do you sometimes think, gosh, if only this or only that, or
Yeah, I think so. I think that there, you see that some of our peers, Oasis supported us, for example, in Manchester, and you see, their meteoric rise thereafter, and we play with, Blur. We were on the same level as them for a little while through 1991, and you just wonder if maybe Here I Stand hadn't been weighted out of the charts, would we have gone on top of the pops? Would Slinky have sold another 30,000-40,000? Would we have, But you've got to, when I contrast it with my experience with my first band, the Word Association, what happened with us with the Milltown Brothers was sensational. It was chalk and cheese, and I'm eternally grateful for that, because I've seen it from both sides.
I'm just wondering, Simon, if you you know, I came and saw you in those days at the Mechanics, and you know, you had a following, didn't you? And the people of East Lancashire were like, "These are our lads. These are our boys." Was there any ever a feeling that you'd let your, I mean, Burnley and Colne are very colloquial places, aren't they?
Yeah.
And kind of very loyal. Did you feel like you don't let the guys down in that regard at any point?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, yeah, I remember we played Mechanics at the end of '91. It was a real celebration, Christmas, just before Christmas, and it was sold out Mechanics, and I felt so proud to represent. You know, if I can say that, represent the area. You know, we're Burnley fans. You know, died in the world. First time I saw Burnley was in 1972 at Bloomfield Road. We lost 4-2. I was there when, you know, we beat Orient. I was on the Beale end, and you know, I'm very, very. My heart's in that area,
Yeah.
definitely. And I remember playing at Municipal Hall, and the record company coming up, and they could see where we came from. And you know, when it all slips away, it is a bit in the back of your mind that you say, "Oh, why can't why?" Look, there's Turf Moor.
I was about to say, for people who are listening rather than watching,
Yeah.
Simon over his right shoulder's got an elevated picture of our beloved Turf Moor there. So yeah.
My brother Mark painted that. He's an artist,
Oh
Mark.
right, okay.
Yeah, so I give Mark a plug.
Yeah, Mark the
Yeah,
artist.
I think we did a little, but I suppose also, what can I say? But yeah, for me, yes, you know, oh, you want to hold your heart. You know, you used to go in the Sparrow and in the Sparrow Hawk with the pub you go to, and people recognise you, and it was great. It felt wonderful, yeah.
Mm.
Um, but and I hope seeing people come over at Hebden Bridge. We're playing Cantina in Lancaster, which two of the lads come from Lancaster, so
Yeah.
that's a connection. While we're playing on the 25th of November at Cantina in Lancaster, we have a connection to there as well, obviously. But you know, I hope we can play. Well, I know we are playing. We're playing in Barlick actually at the Music and Arts Club on the
Yeah.
23rd. I think that's already sold out.
Yeah.
A Christmas party gig, but we will play if people want us to play in East Lancs. We would definitely play
Yeah.
if people want us to.
And what about new stuff? Is there any plans or?
Yes, possibly. I think Matthews is he's kind of been the main songwriter in the last two albums. You know, he and I would collaborate more on Slinky and Valve, but since that time he's had a sort of like he's had a very strong focus and direction in songwriting. But he and I'm going up to Lancashire on Thursday, and I'm hoping that he and I have a little session, and we got a few ideas, and he wants to introduce a new song to the Cantina set. So hopefully.
I'm guessing it must feel brill just being back together as a band. I mean, again, I don't want to keep name dropping Rick Witter, but you know, he said ultimately, you know, these were my mates when we were kids, you know,
That's it. Yeah.
and then we're back, and we do it because we love it, and people like us to do it.
I echo those thoughts, absolutely. I mean, they had more success than us. I think Shed 70. I have to admit that. But the principle and the feelings and that he expressed would apply to us very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always interested in musicians, Simon, because sometimes there's an assumption that if you play rock and roll or whatever it is, that's what you like. But what are your other musical interests and influences? You know, I was interested. I interviewed an opera singer who did it turned out he liked thrash metal, which it was like chalk and cheese. What floats your boat these days?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, my wife very much likes listening to classic FM, right? And I'm constantly, you know, as a songwriter or a guitarist, you think listening to melodies and things like that. So I have that kind of world. I've entered that kind of world a little bit and beginning to appreciate some classical music more than in the past. Actually, on the other scale, I really quite like early rootsy blues as well, which I never used to. And I played in a covers band, and we did lots of Beatles. Called in a village called Elton in Cambridgeshire, and the other some guys wanted to create a Beatles covers band, so with the Eltones. So yeah, I was introduced to a lot more Beatles than I had been in the past, but I still quite really like driven melodic guitars, I must say, Alex. That's my sweet spot. I really, we were listening to Fables of the Reconstruction by REM before the gig, and I still really like that sort of South Southern Gothic and even over Californian psychedelic guitar. That's still the thing that really I like.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get back together, are they? It's kind of he's called it a day, hasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, more's a pity because I mean their songbook is wonderful.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm just we've lived through a golden era of music, haven't we? I mean, I just constantly find myself in any downtime just trying to seek out new bands, and I know George Harrison's not a new artist by any means, but I've just been exploring his solo work, and I've been kind of quite blown away by it. And then there's so many gifts and golden nuggets still out there to find out there in the world of music. Most definitely.
I was reading that you're a big Depeche Mode fan, aren't you? I was looking into that.
Yeah, I am a huge.
With it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
sorry.
followed Depeche Mode since I was a boy, and I've seen them on every tour. And I've got the old Depeche Mode
Oh, good,
tattoos,
yeah.
and I saw them this year in Twickenham, and yeah, and I'm a bit electronic band that kind of involved, you know, more of a bluesy rock band now, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they introduced the guitar into that band with fantastic effect, didn't they? I mean, what a way to do it. Start out as an electronic band, then, throw in some fabulous guitar licks. I mean, they're purveyors of really brilliant pop music. That, it's not really my cup of tea, but I totally appreciate the quality of the writing and what they're all about. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Simon, I've this half an hour's flown by. I've loved chatting to you. Are the rest of the guys as enthusiastic about you about these gigs?
Yeah, I'm definitely having felt a little bit of trepidation at Hebden Bridge. It's given us the taste to do it again, and the intention is to, we got Cantina in Lancaster on the 25th. We're playing in Bonalswick on the 23rd of December, and I think we're going to do a set of gigs in the new year with the hope of doing some festivals over the summer, and we're hoping to get the master of Slinky, and we're going to reissue that hopefully through an indie label and promote that next year as well, adding a couple of tracks to the original and producing a box set as well. So
I've got to ask this question now, Simon. You've just said that. Do you own your material?
You know what? This morning I just sent an email to a guy called Paul at Universal Music, UCG, I think that they call, setting out what we wanted to do and trying to find out if we own the master copies or if they own it, because they took over A&M Records, and asking him. So I had to give my PRS number. I've given the catalogue number, and I'm making the inquiry at the moment. So I hope we do. It'd be fabulous. I could go down to London and pick it up, but more likely that they still own it, and we'd have to pay a licensing fee, I would have thought.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And people will be intrigued by that your music isn't yours necessarily, but it's yours.
Have to pay to have it back to put it out again.
Crazy, yeah. Oh well, Simon, thanks again, and who knows? Maybe the mechanics, eh?
We love to play Burnley. Up the Clarets.
Up the Clarets, yeah. Do you think we'll stay up, Simon?
Oh, I was thinking about that. You know what? I think there may be three worst teams. I think we play really good football, but it seems it's a bit like an under-23 side, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit naive. But when we played Forest and when we played, obviously Luton, we're competing and we've had good moments, haven't we?
We had a fabulous first half against Chelsea, and then we conceded, and then we just
fell apart.
Collapsed.
Yeah. I think something tells me hopefully we might come good. Hopefully.
I think you're right. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. Yeah. So just plug that gig one last time in Lancaster.
Yes. So tickets still available for our gig at Cantina in Lancaster on November the 25th. The tickets are available at Skiddle, which is an online ticketing platform. I think you can get the link from our Facebook and from our Twitter pages. Just a big thank you to Jonathan Bibby and Andy Devaney for all the work they're doing for us as well. And big love to Debs as well, who's a big fan of ours, having a lot of problems with her mother at the moment. Very well. So shout out to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, and all the best with everything that comes up, and definitely look forward to seeing you up in Lancashire very soon.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.